Following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and a supremely satisfying conclusion to one of the most heartbreaking stories we've ever covered on the podcast.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this is podcast episode number 286. This is our final installment in our coverage of the HBO limited series Chernobyl. This week we're going to be discussing episode 5. The title of the episode is Vichnaya Pamyat. I've been saying that out loud about a week and a half now, so I think I have it now.
It sounded good.
Good. That's good. That's what I want to hear. Yeah, so let's jump right into our quick thoughts on the episode. As we said before we started, you said it's my turn to go first, yes?
Correct, yes.
Correct. Okay, so the finale. We've been saying for weeks now that this is just such a great series, and they really just, I don't know what other superlative I can use. It's just such a great series, and it was such a satisfying ending. I think everything happened the way I kind of wanted it to, and there were still some surprises, some things I did not expect. I thought the structure of it was really well done. I think there were a couple of moments of happiness, but there were also, this is real life. And there were some things that were like, okay, things happened this way, and we're just going to let you know about them. And I thought it was good because they didn't, they weren't afraid of any of the details. And I can't say enough. It was just really, really well done. It was, all the words we've been saying for, now 5 weeks, heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and chilling and sad and scary and frustrating too. There was a lot of frustration in this episode, I think. But yeah, just brilliant, just overall brilliant. How about you? What are your thoughts on the finale?
I agree with you. That, like we have repeatedly said, there really isn't a bad episode in this 5. They're all above average. There are definitely some I think that we like better than others, but still they're all great, and this one, you're right, it draws the series together, and it gives you the closure. It's mostly focusing on the trial and sort of the delving into the why, the how. And at the same time, you get the closure at the end where they kind of tell you, what happened to some of the people that we didn't know had hung themselves when the show started. And, and so you see that, which was great too. And, again, like you said, there's a lot of tragedy there, but there's also some little uplifting moments in that epilogue where you're like, really? That's awesome. When you see what this person made it or that person made it, whatever. And I have to say that watching the stuff going on leading up to the explosion it's you just want to scream at those people to like stop, and so many of the guys that are not Dyatlov are repeatedly saying in that control room, like, we should stop. This is not right. We don't know what we're doing. We should stop. And he's just like, if you don't do it, you're fired. You know what I mean? And at the same time, as the audience, you're just like, stop! For the love of God, stop! So yeah. And I thought that was just an incredible to watch because you know what's coming, and yet you can't stop it. You can't. You're powerless, and it was like you couldn't look away. So I thought it was really good wrap up for the show. I was thinking about it, like, would I have wanted this to be longer, like more episodes? And I think the answer is no. No, I don't. I mean, it was just the right length, I think.
Yeah.
Because all they could have done if they expanded it was show more suckage.
Yeah, exactly.
More people that died horribly and were, in many cases completely innocent, because they kind of focused on everybody that was directly involved pretty well, I thought.
Yeah.
And so, the only other folks they could draw in would just be more of the Ludmillas of the world,
the
that
innocent
were like,
bystanders.
Oh, hey, and I think they covered that quite well. We didn't need to see anymore. So again, I think as a wrap up for the series, I thought it was really good. I thought it was effective, and it caps the show in a really perfect way. That, and I don't know, I was going to ask you this later, but I'll ask you now, and I think I already know what the answer is. But when I first watched it last year or the year before, whenever I did, when it was over, and even before it was over, but definitely when it finally ended, I was like super intrigued and curious. I'm like, I want to read more about this for real, and find out more about some of these people that we knew were real people, and kind of see, what how close were they to the truth, and what did they omit, and all of that. And that, those feelings came rushing back when I was watching it this time too. And I know you had said that you were, you're naturally curious like that too. But I'm wondering, did you have that feeling so intensely as I did, where you're like, oh my God, I have to see more about this?
Yeah, I did. I think what was helpful too was listening to the official podcast right after I watched the episode finally. So that they couldn't spoil me with anything.
Right.
I think they did a good job, because Craig Mazin in those episodes they spent a lot of time in those episodes talking about the real people and the real circumstances, mostly because they wanted to talk about how historically accurate their representation was. So they did speak a bit about the real people, and it was it was enlightening to listen to that stuff. But yes, once I knew, like, how things worked out, like, because I didn't want to delve, because I didn't want to be spoiled, and it's so easy to be, because everything that happened was historical fact. So so I did, dive a little bit, but one of the things that I found I really want to do is, I think I want to get the book. I want to get that book that Craig Mazin talks about, that he used as a source material for a lot of it.
Source material,
that it's called Voices of Chernobyl, and it has a lot of interviews with people that were from Pripyat, the town there. And I'm very, very interested. I think I'm going to give myself a little distance from the show.
Okay.
So that, because I mean, it's very fresh right now. And they did take some dramatic license. So I don't want to read something and go, that's not the way it was. Like, that's the show didn't do that. So why didn't they? You know what I mean? So I think I'm going to separate them a little. And I think I will absolutely read that book. I'm trying to do a reading challenge for myself this year, and I'm on a good pace, but I have a stack of books right now. So I should be set through at least the middle of the summer with what I have on the coffee table. But yes, that's definitely a book that I definitely want to get and read through, and sort of get some more perspective on it, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would recommend, there is another, it's a documentary that's on HBO, and it's called The Chernobyl Tapes.
Ooh.
And it's a lot of, like, archival footage that was put together about Chernobyl and about the people at Chernobyl. And so if you're at all interested, and it sounds like you are, I would suggest you check that out, because it's right there on HBO for you if you want it.
Right at my fingertips.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's jump right into the actual episode itself. First, we'll do a quick recap of what this episode was to be about. So why don't you go ahead and read that, and then we will dive right in.
All right. Well, this is episode number 5. Sorry, it's the last one, people, of the television series Chernobyl, and it is entitled Vichnaya, Pamyat. I've been practicing it too.
Yeah, good job.
The description. Thank you. The description we get is Valery, Boris, and Ulana risk their lives and reputations to expose the truth about Chernobyl. And then there's a little parentheses. It says the title is Ukrainian for Memory Eternal, a hymn sung at funerals, which, oh my God, is that appropriate? So
yeah, that's my own 2 cents I threw in there, but it's I think agreed. It's such an appropriate title.
Yes, and so that's your episode description. So
let's talk structure first, and I think we can both say that Craig Mazin, in terms of structure and crafting a really effective way to tell a story, is something we are certainly used to with Last of Us. I think the way that yes, he was following some source material, but how he structured telling that story was important. So I love the choice of how they started out, where we are in pre-explosion Pripyat, and you're seeing all of those people, and you're seeing, and the fact that they have like Dyatlov like walking straight through.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost like, to me, I was like, oh, he is the harbinger of doom. Like walking right through the middle of this whole story. So I just thought, like, it's like this weird like cognitive dissonance, because it's we're jumping way back to the beginning and looking at that, but we're also like, what's going to happen, so there's like a pit, like you're like waiting for the gut punch, and seeing all these people living their like lives, and the moment with the Ludmila's husband there, and holding the kid, and you're like, oh my God, like how much more like poignant will it be? And I just thought it was really well done, because it was a really interesting use of structure to sort of bring you back to that starting point again, especially in an episode where they were going to be talking a lot about that. How did things start? How did we get to where we are? So they sort of gave us a visual marker for that too. But there were poignant moments, but they only did a couple of them. And I think the fact that they balanced it out with like Dyatlov walking straight through the frame, it kind of killed any kind of good feeling you might have had. So it wasn't like some like sugary sweet like look back in time. It was a realistic, like, these people were happy living their lives, and then this dipshit walked straight through and fucked everything up.
Well, yeah, and just how oblivious they are to, what is it like when they first jump? It's like 12 hours before the explosion.
Yep.
And literally, it's like in 12 hours, first of all, most of you are going to be dead. And second of all of your lives are going to change.
Yep.
The world that is going to be, it's ripped apart.
Yeah.
And with that scene when Ludmila sees her husband, holding the baby, and of course she knows she's preggers.
Yep.
Right. So she's, looking at that, and it's just like, kind of in her mind, she's like, oh my God, that's going to be our child in 6 months or 8 months or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it just adds even more to it, of you're just like, oh my God, it's like, oh, run, get in your car and drive.
Yeah. How fast can you drive?
And you're right.
You should do that right now.
Oh, just, pick a direction. It doesn't matter. Just go.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then like you said, kind of stomping through it all, by himself and already in a pissy mood is Dyatlov, and just to kind of muck it all up. And then I love that they go from that, and that whole sequence, there's no dialogue, it's all MOS, it's just with the music playing over it, right? And it goes from that to this, what I think is just, it's a scene where it's like, oh my God, it totally sets up everything that's going to happen afterwards and gives you so much context, which is where Foman and Dyatlov are waiting for the guy with the great hair to show up.
Yeah, Brukhanov.
In his office.
Yeah.
In Brukhanov, yeah. And Foman is like talking to Dyatlov, and he's like, once this is done, they're probably going to promote Bukhanin and get him out of there. Yeah. And who knows where he's going to go. And then he kind of just throws in, and then they'll obviously give me his position here. And then he throws this line out of, I'm going to need to find someone to take over my spot. And he goes, maybe I'll get the remember the guy that they brought in from the day shift that had the key to the safe to open up to get the good dosimeter, who came into the bunker and told them and all. He mentions that guy. He's like, maybe I'll give it to that guy. And you can see Dyatlov, like the look on his face, and he's just like, oh, I can't believe I have to beg for this, but he does, and he's like, I'd like you to consider me for that position. And the whole point of the scene is that Foman is basically telling him, if we pass this test, good things can happen for us.
Yeah.
And that little seed planted in Dyatlov's mind, I mean, he's already a total douchebag, but that he is like in full douchebag mode now, because the only thing he wants to do is have a successful test so he can get a promotion, so he can, improve his standing, his lifestyle, his everything. And all thoughts of caution and safety and all that is gone now, because he knows that Foman saying it without saying it, we really got to pass this test tonight no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that scene was brilliant. And then especially when the guy comes in and he tells them they got to wait 10 hours, right? Because they can't cut the power anymore because the power grid needs to be up for the factories and all that. And then he's like, so we're okay with that? And both of them are like, yep, no problem. Yep, we got it. Sure. And so he gets up and goes home. And I think Dyatlov says he's going to go home and get some sleep and he'll be back because it's not going to be for 10 hours. And then Foman is left in the guy's office, and he kind of like does the whole like imagine where I'm going to put my pictures on the walls moment and shit, and then he leans up against the wall like, yeah, this is going to be so sweet, know, and you're just like, oh God,
It was so I loved the choice, because in any other show you would see someone, I'm going to try to sit in the chair, and I'm going to sit in the chair and see what it's like to be in this power position. But what inevitably happens is it's, of course, a comedy or some kind of whatever. And that person who sits in the chair, then someone comes in and sees them, and then there's this uncomfortable whatever. He chose very smartly just to be at where the chair sort of would be. He's at the back, like behind the desk. He could have easily explained it away like, I needed to lean against the wall, or I wanted to, I was looking at something out the window. It does, you know what I mean? He wasn't, there was nothing in that. We know what he was doing, but he could have easily explained that away. And I just thought it was so much more subtle than what we've seen in other shows, in that moment of like, I want to picture myself in this office. And he did it in such a like, like I said, like just a subtle, but it's there, and you obviously know what he's doing. It's clear what he's saying, what he's doing in this moment, and it's just it's so wonderfully done. It's so wonderfully done.
And it feeds all of the flashback stuff in the control room perfectly, because you know exactly why Dyatlov is insisting that they just keep going forward, even when everybody around him is saying, whoa, 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 we need to really stop.
Yeah. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
if we got the like sort of play-by-play stories and didn't have that explanation scene. We would have been like, what is with this Dick? Like, why is he just, I mean, it was pretty clear, we knew from other scenes, that he's a difficult person. It's just who he is. That's his personality. But having an actual explanation for why he acted the way he acted, like I said, like, it doesn't excuse it, but you're not sitting there scratching your head like, why would someone act this way? Why would they push and push? And now it makes sense. And it comes from such a, sad and craven place of, wanting to curry favor and wanting to get ahead. You see all of it. And there's been, hints of that throughout the series. I mean, just that moment where Ulana was like, you used to work in a shoe factory. He's like, and I don't anymore. Mm-hmm. Now I'm here.
And now I'm running things.
Right. And there's a real sense of pride in that, in the Soviet Union, where it's like, you were chosen by your, other leaders to take this place, and it's like something to strive for. And it's just really interesting to have seen those kind of politics play out in such a detrimental way. Just incredible. Just incredible.
Especially with a guy like Dyatlov, who should know better.
Yes.
Right. I mean, he like he says, he's been on the job for 25 years. He should know better than to push that reactor the way that he does. Now, I give him the benefit of the idea that he firmly believed that by pushing the AZ5 button that the reactor would just shut down.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So because he was not aware of that design flaw.
Yeah, no one was. Yeah.
He still was blowing through all of what you would imagine are the safety regulations for that. And, basically damming them, full speed ahead, right? Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. And you're right. Without that scene for context, you're just like, what is with this guy? And does he want to die? There's no reason for him to act. I get it's like, we get it. You're a dick. You don't have to act like it 24/7. We understand. But at the same time, you're like, why are you pushing so hard and insulting these guys and, everything? Well, now we know. And you're right. It's for the most petty, but yet understandable reasons, because everybody wants to get ahead, right? Yep. Everybody wants to get that big promotion. Everybody wants to make more money and get a bigger house and a better car and all that stuff. So you can understand it. You can empathize with it. But at the same time, you're just like, as I'm watching this, I'm just like, to all those guys in that control room, I'm just like, just leave, be like, fine, fire me. I'm not doing it, but again, what are you going to do? It was great though. I loved it. I loved that. The whole opening sequence was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. And it just sets up so much for, the rest of the episode. We take this sort of this chronological journey once we get to the trial scenes, and to have that sort of base layer placed there just makes so much sense. It makes everything else, like you were saying, it doesn't make absolute sense, but you see more of the motivation, motivational factor for why Dyatlov was the way he was. Right. I loved, before we get to the trial, there's this great scene where Legasov is just like on the street. He's just walking, and like, it's just, Soviet Union was just so different from any other country. And literally this guy just appears near him, and he just has this look of like, in America, he'd be called a spook or a CIA or something, but it's KGB.
A man in black.
Yeah. Yes. A literal man in black. And he just he never says a word to Legasov. He just looks at him, and Legasov just has to surmise, like, I need to go with him. Like, that's just, it's just the way life is. When you get a man in black who's standing there looking at him, okay, the next step is to go with him. And so he does. That's and
right.
he has
There's no discussion.
Yeah, there's no discussion. You just go. And he has this nice little scene with the guy from the KGB, and he's basically, he's told in no uncertain terms, they already had the one. It wasn't really a trial, but more like a testimony to the international
in Vienna.
Yeah, and they were in Vienna and had that, and he lied about stuff, but he represented his country appropriately. And the guy from the KGB, and not word for word, but he's like, you did good. You're gonna be promoted. You'll get credit for this, that, and the other, and there'll be job openings and promotions available to you, basically.
Well, yeah, he's going to receive like the Hero of the Soviet Union, which is their highest award, which the guy running the KGB points out he has not received yet.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be Legasov is going to be made like the chairman of the institute that he works at currently.
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, big time step up for him.
Oh, God, yeah.
In money and prestige, I mean, everything. Because, like you said, because he was a good soldier and said what they wanted him to say. Yep. And I think, doesn't he read the West German newspaper and they say like the one Soviet scientist who tells the truth? And the KGB guy's like, well, I disagree with their statement there. I have to congratulate you that I think they believed you,
Right.
So, but yeah, so he has promised, he has done what he has been told to do, and all this stuff is kind of the carrot in front of him, with the caveat of after the trial of those three guys, if if everything goes well, all this is going to be yours. So he still has to go through with the trial coming up. And also at that point, I believe Legasov is like, when are we going to fix the other reactors?
Yes. What's the
because
time?
Nothing. Yeah, and nothing's been done. It's been months and nothing's been done. And again, the KGB guy's like, after the trial, then we'll look at it. But you can tell even then, Legasov is like, I don't really believe you when you say that. I
don't trust that you're telling me the right thing here. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, so that's so that is a really interesting little scene. First of all, you're right with the way that scary guy just appears, and Legasov's like, I guess I'm going with you now, And he also, by the way, too, when he gets in the car, the first thing the KGB guy goes, how are you feeling? And he looks at him like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you went to the doctor. How are you feeling? And he's like, don't you know? And the guy just kind of laughs, But anyway, it lets you know that he has gone and had someone check him out.
And of course, that the KGB also knows that he went to the doctors. He's being followed, and reported on. That's just so nerve-wracking. But speaking of his health, we do get a scene where we see him in his apartment and his hair's falling out, starting to.
Yep.
So that he's going into this second trial with the, he's got the weight of Ulana wanting him to be truthful, and the weight of the fact that he's gonna die earlier than he would like to because of his exposure. But you take that and you weigh it against promises of, jobs and titles and things. And it's funny how those sort of same carrots were held out for Dyatlov, and they're being held out for Legasov too.
Yep.
And it's one and the other. Like, Dyatlov was offered these things and he turned a blind eye to things being done improperly just so that he could finish it. And Legasov is being told to turn a blind eye too, and he'll be rewarded for it. So it's interesting how both those scenarios are playing out in this episode. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
So
I just have to say,
go ahead.
I can totally sympathize with him when he ran his fingers through his head and his hair fell out. I had total PTSD flashback stuff to
Aw.
like my 20s, like when my hair just said, yeah, we're done now, we're going.
Yeah,
So
that's the
it's
end. You enjoyed your hair
yeah,
for, about 20 years, and then now you're done.
and now you're done. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
actually they're like, we're gonna start like growing out of other places you probably don't want us to. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that Legasov has that problem that you experienced, but he has the other one where the hair is falling out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
It's interesting because as we sort of move into the majority of the episode is obviously the trial, or as they call it, the show trial, because these guys are being put on trial. I am using air quotes, but we all know that they're going to be the fall guys no matter what, especially based on the testimony that Legasov gave in Vienna. If he sticks with that testimony, it's a pretty foregone
it's
conclusion.
Operator error, and that pretty much there's no the only thing is that Dyatlov and the two guys that told Dyatlov to do the test are completely at fault. That is, you're right. It's a foregone conclusion.
It's interesting, and I was like, wait a minute, they're in the town of Chernobyl, and they explain on the main podcast that there's some sort of legal like not loophole, but sort of a legal thing in Soviet Russia that's on the books that for a criminal trial of that kind, it has to be held as close to the town where the crime occurred as possible. So the town of Chernobyl, which I would assume that's what the power plant was named after, it's about 20 kilometers from the actual plant, but they are within the exclusion zone, because the exclusion was like 30, right? 30 or 35 kilometers, I think.
Well, they eventually said it's like 2,600 square miles is the total exclusion zone. It's like most of the Kiev area and like Belarus. As well. So clearly it's well within even like the 30-kilometer zone that the guy who had no clue about the science said was the exclusion zone in like episode 3. It's within that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because they're all, I mean, at this point, like Sherbina and Legasov are like, whatever, we're gonna die early anyway.
Yeah,
so it's a little bit more heaped on top. What's it gonna do? But here's all these people who've never been to that area before, and now you're like, I hope you take a Silkwood shower when you leave, because you're gonna need it.
Take those iodine pills, kid.
I wonder if that was offered. That'd be an interesting piece of trivia to look up, if they gave the iodine pills to people. So I just thought that it was jarring. So it didn't take me out of it when I watched it, but I stuck that in my head. And I was like, why are they there? And then they explained it on the podcast, and I'm like, that's so crazy. Yeah. It's just crazy that they had to have it there.
Yeah. And I love
No, go ahead.
The shot. I was just gonna say that I love the shot of it's Sherbina and Legasov, and they're in the back seat of the car, and they're driving to the trial, and they go past this like car park that's off the side of the road, and it's just hundreds and hundreds of trucks and cars and helicopters, and you see the fire trucks, and it's literally all the vehicles, or most of them that they used or were used in Chernobyl that are just they're irradiated. You can't, they're done. You can't do anything with them, and they're just sitting there. And like I said, it's hundreds of them, and it's just a stark reminder of the cost. Right. That this event has had. I thought that scene was and the two of them are sitting in a car. They're not talking. There's no dialogue, but they both watch as they're slowly driving past this. And it's powerful stuff.
It's so funny because the very next big project that Craig Mazin worked on is Last of Us. And there's like a couple of different scenes where they're going down the highway and all of those abandoned army vehicles. So,
Yeah. all the tanks.
Interesting.
Remember Ellie wanted to see a tank, and he's like,
Yeah.
"You will."
You will. You will.
So,
It's funny too because here was this, fake apocalypse that we just watched, and then this Chernobyl was truly a very real apocalypse that happened.
yeah.
Oh, Craig
absolutely.
Mazin, you did such a good job making us think.
That Craig.
Love it. I mean, the whole trial as a whole, it was broken up into different parts, and Sherbina speaks and Ulana speaks, and of course Legasov speaks, and just overall, I would say the trial itself was so tense because laying out each moment where there was a failure the fact that the night crew didn't even know they were going to do a test. And then when they got to the test, Toptunov, which how jarring was it to have seen these people on their deathbed like Toptunov, and now you're seeing these nice long scenes with them as they are. Because
normal,
in the
healthy.
very first episode, we only got, small bits and pieces of people, here and there, whereas we got these like long drawn out scenes where you see everything that happened in the control room. I thought that was another interesting thing too, to sort of pull at the heartstrings is, look at this little 25-year-old with a mustache he can just barely grow on his top lip. Very adorable.
Yeah.
But just
go
ahead.
Just the fact that like you said, that the shift change happens at midnight, and so the guys coming in on the night shift have zero training about the test. They've never done it before. They've never even seen the procedures until he hands it to them, and on top of it, like big chunks of the instructions in the numbered instructions have been crossed out with red ink. And so they literally, the one guy has to call someone in another reactor that tried to do the test previously. And it's like, hey, this stuff's crossed off. Should we still do it? And he hangs up the phone and he's like, yeah, we should still do it. And then what's his name is like, well, why was it crossed off then? But they're like, they have no time to absorb it at all, you know, because Dyatlov's like, here, go, I'll tell you what to do. You just do what I tell you, And so, yeah, that was unforgivable that they would do that. Right.
Yeah, it was.
But then later on. Yeah.
No. Go ahead. Continue.
I said, then later on, it doesn't Legasov say that like the guys that were working that were not in the control room, they weren't even told they were doing a test.
Yep.
So, the guys that were like out on the floor and down in the pump room and all that, they were just assuming it was a regular night.
Yep.
Right. And so even worse. But yeah, it's and what did Komyuk say? She said it was like Yuri Gagarin, who was the first guy to go into space. And he was a Soviet guy. It's like, imagine if he was told of his mission and given the instructions to do the mission like 2 minutes before the mission. Right. And that's the equivalent of what these guys were going through, in terms of what they're being asked to do. And then she points out that the guy that was in charge of controlling the reactor output had a grand total of 4 months on the job.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, and you're just like, oh my God, stop, please stop, But
when you think about all of the factors, that came into play, all of those, the job offer carrots that were put in front of Dyatlov, he's a dick to begin with. That's just his nature. So he was like the absolute wrong person. And then you have these young, inexperienced guys in the control room who it's a two-prong thing because they don't have enough experience to know when something, like they knew certain things were wrong, but they also knew that like Dyatlov, they didn't know that Dyatlov wasn't following the proper procedures. And so there was that, but also they were scared when he's like, you'll never work again. If you don't do this test, you'll never
Yeah.
work again. I'll make sure of it. And they believe that,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
yeah, all of that. You take all of those little bits and pieces, and then you layer into it the fact that the AZ5 button didn't work the way they thought it would because of the stupid tips made of boron, and it's
Graphite.
the graphite on the tips. And so it's like any one of those things could have been like a fatal problem with a nuclear reactor, but it's all of those things together. It was almost like a perfect storm brought together, and it made the moments where because most, Ulana and Legasov were the ones that really sort of laid out everything that happened, based on the information they got in interviewing other people. And then, Legasov takes that and adds to it the nuclear stuff, and teaches, what those the red and the blue like cards that he put out. So
the placards,
every single time, like as they kept going along and along and along, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I just have this pit in my stomach. And we've said this before about this series, which is, it's amazing when you take a show where you know what's going to happen and you are still able to build tension in there.
Yeah.
We not only know what's going to happen, we've already seen it happen from a different perspective. We know that Dyatlov's a dick. We know that the people in the control room were scared / inexperienced / not sure what to do in the moment with all of the stuff that was going wrong. Like, we got that version already. We knew kind of what was going to, and still you're just sitting there watching the whole thing like, this is so tense. This is so nerve-wracking. And you already know what the outcome is. I think that's brilliant. Right. It's brilliant storytelling to sort of the way they layered it in and told the tale at the trial.
And not only do you know what's going to happen, you know when it's going to happen. And they're saying like, okay, this is 2 minutes before the explosion. So you're watching it and you're like, well, I know it's not going to explode now, but you're still like, oh my God, it's going to explode.
Oh my God.
And that's just, again, it's that kind of everything coming together of writing, acting, production, and directing and design, and it just works. And yeah, you're right, it does. And on all levels. I mean, all those guys in that control room, that they were all the guys not named Dyatlov, let's say, were playing up this. They were scared and fearful because they were being told to do something that they didn't understand what they were doing.
Yes.
And whenever like their training would say, hey, we should slow down and take a minute and not do this because that's what we've been trained to do, there's the boss saying, no, you're going to do it now or you're fired. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that sort of like you said, that the pit in your stomach, kind of like, you start getting the butterflies going. I got the sense I could feel their butterflies, that they're like, this just feels wrong and we shouldn't be doing this, but I want to keep working. And so I'm going to, because my boss is so, and remember the one point where the one guy brings the book over and he goes, I want you to write down that you're ordering us to do this. And he just like smashes. Yeah. And he's just like, shut the hell up. He's like, just do it. You know what I mean? But even that, like that guy felt enough danger and fear that he's like, you know what? I'm going to need you to like give me a written order here. So when they come to shoot me later on, I can say, no, I have this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was following orders.
Right. And because again, what is Dyatlov? He tries to weasel out of it because he's like, I wasn't in there when they raised the power. I was in the toilet. And the prosecutor's like, no. We have testimony from everybody else that was in that room, and they all told the same story. You were there, but we're not falling for that one, But
and that's a true
but,
story. Dyatlov really did try and say at the trial that he was in the bathroom. That he wasn't responsible. He used the toilet defense, people.
The old toilet defense. Yep.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I also like that the way that they presented their testimony. I thought it was really cool that Sherbina went first, and he really just kind of explained what the test was all about.
Right.
What it was trying to do. And I thought that was really, and he explained it in a way that, non-nuclear scientist people could understand. And I thought that was so important for context to know, okay, so they bring the power down on the reactor, and then they bring it down even further to simulate a power outage. And then the idea is, can the turbine that's slowly dying because there's no power, can it still run the pumps until the diesel engines that are there as an emergency can spin up to get up to the right speed to keep the pumps moving? That was the whole point in the safety test. And once you know that's what's going on, and then you get the other two to explain all of the catastrophic things that are happening decision-wise, you're like, oh, okay, I get now why the reactor was, pushed to the edge of destruction like it was, because that was the test, So I thought that was really cool. I just wanted to point that out, that that was really Sherbina's only contribution in the trial was he sort of explained what was going on, what was the point of the test. So.
Yeah, I thought that, in the way that they split the testimony amongst the three of them was really very, very well done. And I agree. I think they did a really good job of, and it was great because we were the judge in that moment. We needed to, they knew that they needed to describe these events in a way where you understood the absolute, the gravity of the situation without understanding nuclear energy. I don't know anything about nuclear energy, but I know a lot more about it now. I thought it was such an effective way to do that. They knew that it needed to be visual, it needed to be colorful and engaging, because some people's brains just work in a different way.
Yeah.
The way Legasov's were on those little plastic cards, the blue and the red. It was just such a great way. Even the dumbest person would get it, when he explained that it's about the balance, and they put everything out of balance in a way where you could never get it back. There really wasn't any way. The AZ5 button would have helped, but it didn't work the way they thought it would. So, but go ahead.
So the red and the blue, and the idea that the number of red cards and the number of blue cards should always be even.
Yeah, as best as you can balance. Even them out. Yeah.
And how he explained, the first red card is the fuel, and it creates the nuclear reaction, and then the first blue card are the control rods, which are the brakes, and then each one, what they do and how they either increase the reactivity or they slow it down, and then explaining, okay, like with the red, you get more steam, and steam makes more heat, and then heat makes more steam, and you kind of get this. Unchecked, you get this sort of chain reaction and a explosion, right? And then he goes through the blue things and what they can do and how they slow it down and they prevent those things from happening. It was wonderful because it lets dummies like us go, okay, I don't understand all of the math and the physics and everything, but I can grasp it rationally as to what they're saying, and it makes sense.
Yeah, so, I understand balance, and I understand, needing to add in this to balance off something else, and and having an improper balance creating what it did. You get that. There's this great, speaking of balance, they did a great job in the trial of creating some visual and sort of conversational balance as well, because it gets too scientific and technically heady and whatever, and you can't really, after a bit you're like, okay, I get it. And they built in this really great moment where Sherbina starts to cough, and they literally are like, it starts to sound bad, so they're like, let's take a recess. And Legasov goes outside and he's sitting on the bench with him, so you sort of have this nice break in the action, almost like a little intermission from the trial, and they're sitting outside, and it really was just a wonderful, wonderful scene between those two actors who, those two characters didn't always see eye to eye on everything. They had to sort of come to a middle ground, and to see where they are now as, I would say friends. It was really such a lovely scene, and I know you included a really great quote from that scene, but I also liked the moment where Sherbina has the little caterpillar, and he just like picks it up and it's on his finger, and it's just this really great sort of representation of the fragility of life. All it would take would be him like squishing with his finger, and the caterpillar would be done. And here's this man who's looking at, he probably only has at most maybe another year or so before his exposure will kill him as well. And it's just this heartbreaking scene between these two guys who respect each other and ultimately care about each other very much. I just thought that caterpillar was just beautiful, just great.
Yeah, that whole scene was great. And the capper is the scene when he has the caterpillar on his finger, and he's just like, I think he says it's beautiful.
Yeah,
as he's looking at it, and clearly this is a guy that he's staring at his own mortality, and now he's just any life around him, he's just taking it all in, kind of thing.
Sure.
But yeah, what I thought was great about that scene is he tells Legasov like kind of a little bit of the history of the town of Chernobyl, and how there were Jews and Poles there, and the Tsarist pogroms got rid of all the Jews, or most of them, and
mostly.
Then the communists threw all the Poles out, and then the Nazis showed up and killed everybody who was left. And after that, people still came there to live, even though they knew that and his words are like, the ground was soaked in blood. They didn't care because they thought it's not going to happen to them. And then he says that line, no one thinks it's going to happen to them. And then you get the idea that he's not really talking about the people of Chernobyl anymore. He's talking about himself. And, and he says something like, do you know why, after they put me in charge, why I came here? And Legasov's like, because they put you in charge. And he's like, yeah. And, again, what have we been talking about so far? The sort of the carrots dangling in front of you. This was a huge opportunity. And even though he's like, I believed them when they said it wasn't a big deal and it just has to be cleaned up, and it wasn't dangerous, I believe them. He was, whether he did or not, he was looking at, thinking of, I do this and I do this well, that's going to help me down the road, and I'm going to move up, and I'm going to, get that promotion or whatever. And so then he kind of talks to Legasov, and he says, that I went to the doctor and they kind of told me, what I have, and they say it's a long illness. It'll be about a year. And he's like, funny, that doesn't seem very long to me. And then he says something like, I always wanted to be a consequential man, someone that made a difference. And he was like, I stood next to them, and he kind of puts his arm on Legazov, kind of saying like, you were the star here. I was just the guy standing next to you. And
Right.
then Legazov just fires back right at him and is just, tells him he's crazy. And I wrote down most of the quote. He's like, everything we asked for, everything we needed, men, material, lunar rovers, who else could have done these things? And then he goes, they heard me, but they listened to you. And he goes, of all the ministers, all the deputies, entire congregation of obedient fools, they mistakenly sent the one good man. For God's sake, Boris, you were the one who mattered most. And it's a really, really nice scene between these guys. And you realize that, they're, they've bonded, right? This event has brought them together. And basically they're, just trying to say how, they appreciate what the other one did and, and how, they couldn't have done it without them. And it was awesome. It was a great little scene. And you're right. It kind of gives us a little pause in all of the terror and impending doom.
Yeah.
And kind of get and it's also kind of the last scene these two have together.
Yes. I was going to say too that, it's this intermission from the trial. And Sherbina has this moment, but there's some stuff going on for Legasov too. He's still wrestling with telling the full truth, which would include, the stuff about the AZ5 button, which he knew and was the stuff that was suppressed, and they did, like he said in the actual testimony, we took the cheap way or whatever. But you can see that he's still wrestling with, what's to do, should I do the right thing? Will I regret it? Can I live with myself if I don't do the right thing? He's really in the midst of a struggle.
And I think he's also wrestling with, if I do tell the truth, is it going to make any difference?
Yes, that's the problem.
He's weighing the, if I go out and fire both barrels here and tell all I know, I'm done.
Right.
And there's no way around that. And is it going to, what will be the result? Will anything happen, or will I just have thrown my life away and will still be in this mess of it could happen again, And so, he is. And of course, Komyuk is, full bore. You got to tell the truth. Komyuk is like, it doesn't matter. You have to tell the truth. This is your chance. And she points out that there will be scientists in the jury audience, in the trial audience, right? That even if the trial doesn't do anything, they will hear you and know what's going on, and they will demand change. And which I'm like, really? Are they gonna though? But so she is full force, damn the torpedoes. It doesn't matter what happens to us. We need to get this out here because we could be talking about, destroying the planet, and she's not wrong. But again, like we've been talking about these last couple episodes, whenever we see these people doing these incredibly brave, selfless acts that are, either killing them or significantly reducing their lifespan, we're always like, would you really be able to do that in the moment of truth? And I think this is another spot where Legazov is like, I if I say stuff, I'm done. And what is it really going to accomplish?
Yeah. And you got to trust a lot that the scientists will come through and fight for those changes and all of that, because they will come up against the same. When you look at the kind of power that Legasov has in these moments, he's being offered these really great positions, but prior to those offers, he's still a powerful man in terms of professionalism. Like in his professional life, he's a powerful man, and he has his words are respected. So if he can't move the needle, I was very skeptical. I'm like, if they're not going to listen to him, then why would they listen to these other folks? They have no obligation to do that.
Yeah, and the Komyuk character, a total idealist here, because I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
And not only the other scientists would they be saying, if they don't listen to him, why would they listen to me? But I would think the reaction from the other scientists would be, hey, that guy who is the most respected guy who knows what's going on here, he spoke out about it, and look what happened to him.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I'm going to come along and try and do the same thing, and I don't have near his exposure, right? Which is what saves him from getting shot, is the fact that, he just went to Vienna and he's kind of a known guy. And if he just suddenly disappears from the board, that's going to be hard to explain away. And so he has saved the firing squad, or the pistol to the back of the head. But for anybody else that's not him, what's to stop them from just being like, oh, you're talking about Chernobyl? Okay, yeah, we're going to kill you now. So
you're done.
So yeah, I agree. I think she, the Comue character, which, as they point out in the end of this episode, and we've kind of talked about it, and they talk about it in the podcast and stuff, it's an amalgamation of a whole bunch of scientists. It's not a real person. I think that character is way, way too idealistic. And even though in this episode she repeatedly says, I know how the real world works, it's like, no, you don't, because you're still advocating these decisions that are basically suicide. I get it. And you notice she didn't say anything, right?
Yeah, she's not putting her life and her career and all of that stuff on the line. She's just making other people do it.
She's advocating that he do it. Yeah. So, but I like the note that you wrote about that when he does tell the truth, I like how you said it doesn't matter at first, but in time it does. So we're kind of right in that, it makes no immediate impact. It's not really until he kills himself and his tapes start kind of circulating that finally the Soviets start to look into fixing the other reactors. So it's not that his truth moment in the trial does not immediately make things better at all.
Yeah. I wonder too if that was some of his motivation for committing suicide was, first of all, I don't want to die this painful death. I would rather go out on my own terms, which I respect. But also, if I do this and I release these tapes, I can't be put under any threat by the government anymore because I'm already dead. So if these tapes make it into the right hands and in the right place, this could affect change. So it feels like it's at least for him, not advocating for suicide, folks, but it's win-win, at least in his eyes, to have done that. Yeah. Because after he makes that leap in the trial, we see it. He makes that leap, and all of his testimony is discounted. They take it away. And
they throw it
oh my
out.
God, that moment, I put it in my notes as well, when he's, thrown in that like space to just sort of wait it out. And when the KGB guy comes in and is talking to him, and he just out of nowhere just like shouts at him. And it was so from left field, it startled me. Like I jumped. And it was so unexpected because that guy's been so sort of dry and quiet. And, I'm going to talk about things that are really scary. And we're following you and whatever. But he's been very even toned. That's the only time you ever see him with any kind of anger. And Legasov recoils. He is genuinely afraid.
Oh, yeah. When he yells at him, like he says something like, when the bullet comes into your skull, what difference does it make? And that's when he yells.
Yeah.
And it's so out of character for every time we've seen this guy. Like you said, he's very controlled and calm, and he does never raise his voice. But all the words he say are terrifying.
Yes.
And they're even more terrifying because he's calm and even toned. And you're this guy could make you disappear if he wanted to, It's
weirder than if he had yelled. A lot of times people who are that even tempered and even keeled, it's creepier than if they would have yelled. Because if they yell, it's something that makes sense. It's something you're used to, not this.
Yeah. It's just when they open that door and he walks in, Legazov walks in, and you can tell like he like looks behind the door, and he's expecting a guy with a gun in there.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah, this is where it ends.
I think yeah. And if we didn't know that he hangs himself in the beginning episode, I would have been right there with him, like, oh yeah, this is where, this is like the scene in Goodfellas, right? This is where Tommy's gonna get shot in the back of the head, when they march him into that back room, and So yeah, I mean it. It was terrifying. But how about when the KGB guy tells him that instead of getting shot, he tells him that, you're going to, when you finally die, it'll be as if you never existed at all. Right. And he'll have, he has he'll keep his job, but he'll have no responsibilities, no duties, no friends, duties. And he will have no one to talk to. No one will want to talk with him. And all of his accomplishments will go to lesser men and women. And just basically you're going to spend the rest of whatever time you have left being nothing. And that was, I was like, just shoot me.
and he makes a point of saying, and that's part of, the calculation that Legasov made, which is the KGB admits, like, he's too high profile. They really can't do anything. They can't kill him. Not currently, but they can make him pay for what he did.
Oh, yeah. And that's what the guy says. He's like, I want you to realize that, you don't really exist at all.
Yeah, you're gone.
Terrible. And I'm sure that, like you said, that factored into his decision, along with the fact of, I'm just going to get sicker and sicker, and I don't want to, end up like, the guys in the beds rotting away kind of a thing. So
and how chilling. They didn't have to show his sort of solitary life with his cats that he has later on that we see in the very first episode. You just have to show him being carted away in the car, and Ulana and Sherbina watching, and he doesn't get a chance to say goodbye, and he never sees them again. So that's that. He made his choice, he did it, and he accepts it. He's alive, so that's, something, but they'll never see him again. And just that shared moment, the no words, and they all sort of know what he sacrificed to do what he did. It was a really great scene.
Oh yeah. It was just, there they are, the two of them standing there, off and on the side, and they see him get in the car, and he sees them, and they all know this is it, that the three of us will never see all three of us again.
Yeah. And his, there's a little, voiceover stuff as we get to the end of the episode, and it's his line he says from the beginning, that ends with, what is the human cost of lies? And did you write out the whole thing? You did.
Yeah, the end of it. Yeah, he says, where I once would fear the cost of truth, now I only ask, what is the cost of lives? Of lies, excuse me. Yeah, and it is. And the way they show, like, the Chernobyl site, well, he says most of it, and then he goes, now I only ask, and then it smashes to black, and then you just hear that line, what is the cost of life? It was just a fitting way to end it, which I believe he says that line in episode 1. I believe that's the last thing he records before he takes out the trash and then gets into the stirrup, so to speak. So so it's a nice way to bookend the series, where we start with that quote and we end with that quote. So it was amazing.
I loved it. I loved, we get this luxurious epilogue. Most times you get an epilogue with, like, when there's a historical tale and they tell you, oh, this person died 2 years later and da 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 da. But it was the epilogue. Oh, geez, I can't even speak tonight. The epilogue itself was over 4 minutes long, which is just a luxurious amount of epilogue. But I thought it was really interesting the entire time. And there's lots of really great information. We've got a couple of points that hit us the hardest, but they really sort of cover like what happened to pretty much everyone you met in there. And they go through a lot of the historical fact. But the entire time of the epilogue, the actual hymn, the Vichnaya Pamyat, is playing underneath the whole time.
Yeah.
That's such a Craig Mazin.
It was awesome. I know he's the guy. The guy, he can make good TV. He can. Yeah, I mean, I just when the little snippets of like Foman was said, he got 10 years. All three of those guys got 10 years in like labor camps. And when Foman got out, he got a job in another nuclear plant.
Isn't that incredible?
I know. It's just like, what, are you nuts? Yeah. It doesn't say what he was doing. Maybe he was the janitor, but I'm just saying, it's like, really? But I guess that's the Soviet state, right? That, they looked at what his skill set was.
Yeah. And he was put where he was most useful.
Yeah. So, but that was crazy. And then you find out that Dyatlov, he died like 9 years later. So he never actually got out of the labor camp. He died there, but he lived a little bit longer. And then what Sherbina died in 1990, I think.
Yeah, so he lived like another 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, so he didn't have much time overall. And then like Ludmilla, they said that she would never have another baby because of the radiation and stuff, and she actually did. And she and her son were living in Kiev when that, at the time of the filming, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But the greatest moment to me, and I really wanted to, oh God, it was so hard not to tell you this while we were watching, is that the three guys with the burning out flashlights who have to go turn the valve on and drain the tanks, they all lived.
I know.
I mean, that was so cool. And then like two of them are still alive today. I'm just like, are you kidding? But
that's amazing.
I thought that, yeah. It just shows you the unpredictability of it all, that, even though that was most likely a death sentence and 99% of the time anyone would die, those guys got the golden ring, right? They got their lottery ticket there and they didn't. That was one of the when I first watched it and that came up, it was like the most uplifting thing, because those three guys, we never see them again after they do the thing they do. And you just kind of file it away of, well, they're dead.
Right.
I
mean, it's pretty obvious that they would.
Yeah. I mean, everybody else that was anywhere near that thing has died horribly, right?
Yeah.
So there's no way that those three guys that are traipsing around in waist-high nuclear contaminated water for 20, 30 minutes is going to make it. And the fact that we never see them again, you're just like, yeah, they died. They're just part of the human death toll. And then you're like, nope, they're all alive. You're like, what?
Yeah, that was such a surprising thing to happen in that epilogue. Yeah. I was so tickled pink by that. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
What a great way to sort of like wrap it all up and everything, and get all of the information about all these other people. But yeah, I loved that. I did deep dive a little bit when I was putting my notes together for this, and I looked up some information that I thought was very interesting. Chernobyl is still, to this date, it's the worst recorded nuclear disaster, probably in terms of the sheer like square mileage of things that were irradiated, I would assume. Mm-hmm. And there's also, much like kind of earthquakes have the Richter scale, and hurricanes have like their F1 through 5 scale. The International Nuclear and Radiological Event Scale, and you're like, oh my God, this is
they call that the Foman scale?
Yeah, the Foman scale is it's a scale of 1 to 7. 7 is a major event, and there's only two in history that have been considered a 7. Chernobyl and the Fukushima plant in Japan that was shut down because of the tsunami that time. And I just thought it was interesting to include as a little aside that one step down from the number 7 major event is, just as bad, but not quite as bad, number 6. And there's only been one number 6 event in history, and ding, 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 it was in the USSR as well.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating to look into those like facts of the different nuclear accidents and events that have happened through the years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember after it happened, and this was like in the 90s, so a few years after it happened, but then I remember that there were reports and stories that came out that there was another nuclear accident at a Soviet power plant, a nuclear plant, but it was like in the Ural Mountains in like the middle of the Soviet Union, very closer to China than to like Western Europe. And so it was they'd covered it up. They just didn't tell anyone. And because it was so far in the hinterland, the radiation never really got out and was detected by the West. But like as the Soviet Union was coming apart, it was, secrets were starting to happen and so on. So I do remember hearing about that, and that's interesting that now they consider that an event like that did happen, and it was a 6 out of 7, which is very scary.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask you, do you remember? Probably don't remember, but do you remember reading about 3 Mile Island?
I have read a little bit about it, yes. Because that was the early 80s, right?
It was 79. It was the late 70s, but it was in Pennsylvania, I think, Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or somewhere, kind of on the East Coast kind of thing. And it was in the United States, obviously, and there was a partial meltdown of a nuclear core there, and that's the worst American disaster that we've had. And if anyone is at all interested or curious about it, there is a really, really great movie called The China Syndrome that came out in the 80s, and it's got Jane Fonda and Jack Lemmon's in it, and Jack Lemmon is really good in it. And it isn't like covering that specific accident, but it's a fictional accident that is pretty much the same thing that happened. And so it's really fascinating and very scary. And the title, The China Syndrome, refers to at least the Western scientists or nuclear technician guys. Whenever a meltdown would happen, they coined the phrase, it's the China Syndrome, because the idea is the core will melt through the pad and then keep melting down into the earth until eventually it will appear in China on the other side of the planet. You know what I mean? It'll burn all the way through. So that's what. But anyway, so if people are at all interested, it's an older movie. It's from like 1982 or 83. It's called The China Syndrome, and it's very, very scary. And it deals with a similar thing, although not nearly as horrific as what happened at Chernobyl, because it was only partial and they were able to contain it. So, but anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah. One of the points I did have a point that I wanted to chat about that we jumped over when we started talking about the trial, but I just thought that visually when they show two different things. First of all, the rods, like the way that they showed them sort of like popping up and down,
jumping
when things were starting to really, really. It was almost explosion time.
Yeah. And that poor guy that's out there watching it.
Yeah, and he's like, again, still has no idea that they're doing a test, has no idea what's going on. It's like an alternate reality is happening in front of him.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. And then don't they say that the metal cap that all those rods are popping out on, it weighs 100 tons.
Yeah.
And yet those caps are still jumping.
Yeah, and it's crazy that there was that much pressure built up that it was able to do that. So
Oh,
there was that
yeah.
the visual we got of the way the rods were popping up and down. I thought it was fascinating because it wasn't how I pictured the rods to look. I had a different picture in my
Mhm.
head, but that was fascinating. But also when they get to the point of the final explosion, again,
Yes.
it's coming. It's coming, but it still was just shocking. Even though
Yeah.
you're so unbelievably prepared for it coming, but it's still shocking when it happens.
Yeah, yeah. When the pressure builds up so much that it blows that 110-ton cap off,
Yeah.
and then he says the oxygen rushes into that because that
Uh-huh.
seals the core, right?
Yeah.
It's like a pressurized thing, and that oxygen meets all that heat, and then you get that thermal explosion, and literally there was a mushroom cloud. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it like the reactor became a nuclear bomb. It's just, yeah. And you're right. It's coming. It's going to happen, but you're like almost like gripping the chair with your fingers, digging
Yeah.
in because you're just like, oh. So yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's a thing where like you almost kind of want to see it for real, but no, you don't.
Yeah. Right. You're like, it's coming, and you're like, I want to see this happen, but I kind of don't want to see it happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So those were the things we kind of jumped over of mine. I think you've got a couple of points there that we didn't touch on either. If you wanted to chat about those.
Yeah, they're just little factoids that he revealed. When Legasov finally fesses up about, because the trial, they paint the three guys as it was their negligence that caused this accident.
Right.
And then he talks about the guy hits the AZ5 button, which is supposed to be the failsafe. It's supposed to stop, and then literally the judge is like, okay, we don't need to hear anymore. And he's like, but I'm not finished. And they're like, no, we got your testimony. You're good. And then Sherbina like stands up and goes, let him finish,
Yeah, I love
which
it.
I thought was great. And so they're like, all right. So then he then kind of tells about this design flaw in the reactor, and that there's a secondary exhaust port right below the main one, and that if you were to put a proton torpedo into it, it would go
Nope,
into the
nope,
oh wait, no,
nope.
that's
That's the
not
wrong.
that
That's
one.
wrong. That's wrong.
Sorry, I got confused. But this
Confused
one
it with a
also is
Star
ray shielded,
War.
by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, totally different. But he explains about the AZ5, and that when you push it and the control rods go in, and the first thing that is in there is graphite, which is highly fissionable, and that was sort of the last final straw kind of thing, and so on. But he's talking about all the things that they were doing to try and build up the power for the reactor,
Yeah.
and the only way to do that is to pull out the control rods.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were doing that, and they're doing that, and of course Dyatlov is in full dick mode and is telling them to hurry it up. And so he says there were 211 control rods for reactor number 4, and right before the explosion they had removed 205 of them.
Oh.
So there's very little in there controlling the reaction, the nuclear, the bullets, right, that he talked about happening. And then, of course, when they shut off the water, which is the whole point of the test, is that the pumps stop, and then you need to have the turbines power the pumps while the diesel generators kick in. With the water then evaporates, so now the water isn't there to stop the reaction. And then once all the xenon burns off and that's gone, there's nothing checking the reaction at all. It's all gone.
Right.
And that's when there's this massive power spike. And he says something like reactor 4 was designed to operate at 3,200 megawatts, so 3,200.
Mm-hmm.
And the last recorded power reading before the explosion that it was at 33,000 megawatts. So
did it tell
how,
us? No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, like, that just shows you how much nuclear activity was, how that nuclear fuel was just, there was nothing stopping it at all. It was just chain reaction was going,
I was just going to say they told us everything about the megawatts, but did they ever tell us how many gigawatts it was in?
It's 1.5.
Okay.
But you have to use it to, when the clock tower gets, hit by lightning. So.
Right. Good. Make a note. Duly noted. However noted.
Although that actually happened in 1985, and Chernobyl happened in 1986. So yes, it would be pre-Chernobyl.
Oh man,
you got to get your multiverse.
Yeah, that's true. Doc Brown messing with nuclear energy years before the Russians were.
That's right. That's right.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, I just thought that those little facts were kind of, again, chilling but fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. As a whole, like, we've talked about each episode individually, but where are you on this series as a whole, do you think, in terms of, I guess, where does it, I don't want to say where does it rank, but kind of mentally, where would you put it, like, for a miniseries?
I was kind of thinking about not necessarily this question, but very similar of like, what are my just overall feelings about the show?
Yeah, go with that.
And the answer that I kind of came up with is when I watched it, I loved it and I was fascinated by it. And it's as we've said, it's well made, it's well acted, all that stuff. And it's gripping and tense and amazing. But when it was over, I felt all those things, but I firmly believed I would never watch it again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I'm good. I don't need to see it again. And yet, then when it came up, I'm like, all right, we'll watch it again. And I enjoyed it just as much the second time as I did the first, even though I kind of knew what was coming in certain aspects in terms of the story. It was still a really wonderful journey. It was a great ride to go on. And I never thought I would feel that way because it's such a depressing subject matter. I really kind of felt, I don't need to see it again. I'm good. There's a show. I think there's a show was on Netflix. It was called 13 Reasons Why. Mm-hmm. And it's about this high school girl who kills herself, and she sends these tapes, these 13 audio cassettes to all these kids that knew her in school. And it's like each tape is about a different kid. And it explains why she killed herself. And I really thought it was an awesome show. But when it was over, I'm like, I will never, ever, ever want to watch this again. No reason to. I'm good. And Chernobyl, very similar feelings. Yet I really liked it the second time through. Well, what about you? Where do you what was your overall reaction to this?
I thought it was, we've been talking about the quality of it all of these weeks, and I mean that hasn't changed. It's still such a quality show. I agree with you. I don't know if I would watch it again unless I sort of had to. I'm still intrigued by Penny's little challenge that she gave us, which is once you finish watching episode 5, you kind of want to watch episode 1 again, because you get the description. And now I get it. You get that full description of everything. And would you, the tenor of like, Akimov and Tuptonov in the control room, it would, I would assume, feel different now that you know what you know. I haven't felt the pull to actually watch that because I get the reasoning why. I really do. And I may do it, but I kind of needed the series to sort of sit and simmer. And we did talk a little bit. We weren't recording when I talked about the book, did I? It was before we started recording.
I think it was before, yeah.
Yeah.
We were.
So I would say too that it has piqued a little interest in me to sort of learn a little more. And one of the things I mentioned to Steve that I wanted to do was one of the sources that Craig Mazin used for his writing for this. There's a book that's called Voices of Chernobyl that he used, and it's mainly all of these stories and firsthand accounts from mostly the citizens of Pripyat. And so I think that would be a very interesting book to read, sort of as a, sort of a companion piece to this series. Because, they took some dramatic license with the show, and had to, change a few things here and there. So I think once I have a little bit of distance from the show, I think I do really, really, really want to read that book and get some more facts about what happened. I did love that podcast. I thought that it was very, very helpful to sort of process what you'd seen and some of those little extra tidbits that Craig Mazin was able to give about certain things, and the here and there. It was very helpful and gave sort of extra layers to stuff that you were already very affected by, because how could you not be? I think it's really interesting because these are such different things. We went into doing these episodes because we had just covered Last of Us, and we had this opening, and we were so taken with the wonderful work that Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann had done. And here was this other piece that Craig Mazin had done, and we're like, well, this seems like a really natural fit. But it's interesting how there are lots of similarities in terms of tone and things like that. But then, obviously, it's a historical miniseries versus a, completely fictionalized account of a video game. So there's a lot of things that are just not the same at all. But you can feel a lot of Craig Mazin's style in the way he tells stories, in his writing, sort of his writing style. I love he's not afraid to tell the truth. I mean, yes, Last of Us is it's a story that's based in fiction, but it's also based off of the source material, and it's a pretty bleak source material. That video game is very, very emotional, and it has a lot of bleakness and darkness to it. And he didn't back away from a lot of that when he, was developing the show. There's a lot of bleakness, and that show can be hard to watch a little bit here and there. It's some of it's the worst of humanity, and we know that from covering other apocalyptic shows. And this was a historical way to show some of the worst of humanity too. I mean, Dyatlov's mistakes and his pushing, it's amazing. It's amazing how there are some things that are completely different, versus the fiction and nonfiction portions of this, and some things are just so totally similar. And I liked that you could sense his writing style. I just really felt like that brutality, that brutal truth is definitely something that he's very interested in doing when he writes. He's not interested in backing away from something, which I think is what a great hallmark as a writer and a creator of art, to not back away from the truth. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree. I'm not sure I'm going to be binging this again anytime soon. It's a lot, especially, I mean, any TV show that shows you in great detail what it would be like to be exposed to radiation, and then in the very next follow-up episode has the I'm going to kill all of the puppies in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's not something
You're
that's
good.
on my top 10 to sort of go down that road again, but I would recommend it to anyone else in a heartbeat. And maybe if I watched it with someone like, say, my wife who hasn't seen it yet, I would watch it with someone who hadn't seen it yet. But I don't think I could sit down by myself and watch it again. Just it's too much.
You're not gonna like pull like on a Saturday if it's raining and you're like, I don't have anything to do for a couple hours. I think I'm just gonna burn through a couple Chernobyls. Yeah, no, I agree. It's not that kind of show.
And it's not judgment for those that would. I have a sense that on a rainy Saturday with nothing else to do, that Penny might go to this.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to judge, because that's, things that interest people, they interest people. What are you going to do?
It's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a little tidbit here. If you do get the book, make sure you get the updated version from 2013.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a revised, updated edition that they released, that the gal released. But yeah, it has 500 eyewitness interviews from people that were there, and it relates the psychological and personal tragedy of the Chernobyl accident and explores the experiences of individuals and how the disaster affected their lives. So
I mean, that's
it's available on Amazon for like $20.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an uplifting tale that I want to,
explore.
Read. God. I appreciate the fact that we don't cover a lot of things that are filled with sunshine and rainbows, but sometimes, like the slog, it gets to you a little bit.
It does.
And really we did go Last of Us directly into this, so I'm like, and then we're going directly into more zombies,
straight
et
into
cetera,
fear.
Et cetera. So yeah.
It's kind of where we choose to live.
It is. It's our safe space, as it were.
That's
Anything
right.
else you want to talk about with Chernobyl itself before we sort of move on here?
No, not at all. Just we kind of just echo what you said, that it's a really putting it and then Last of Us back to back. You really see Craig Mazin, and he's established his style, and he is obviously honing his craft, because he's made two really good shows back to back here. So
yeah, amazing. We would typically take a break, but we surprisingly we didn't get any feedback for this. And I get it, people. There's a lot of stuff going on TV right now, and this is the final episode, 2 episodes, especially the puppy one. These are difficult things, so I get it, folks, with not getting any feedback. So we're not going to take a break, but we are going to discuss what's coming up on the podcast. And that's
so, Diana, what's coming up next?
Let me tell you, Steve, that's its own little bit of torture there, because as we record this on a Wednesday, we are mere hours away from the premiere of Fear the Walking Dead Season 8. And I think I wrote in my notes, insert vomit emoji. So yes, insert vomit emoji here.
I think I just threw up a little bit in the back of my mouth. So yeah.
Okay. You can wash that down with water. It'll be fine. Gum actually works really well for that. So they have let us know that Fear the Walking Dead's episodes will premiere on the AMC Plus app on Thursdays prior to it being on regular AMC television on the Sunday night schedule. So if you are looking to get your torture over sooner rather than later, then can I suggest the AMC app and just watch it because why would you want to ruin your weekend? I mean, ruin your Thursday night, go to work on Friday, and then you get to, like, slough it off and go into the weekend clean people without having to watch Fear the Walking Dead on Sunday night. Now, if you are interested in watching it on Sunday night, then you do that too. We're not in a football time period, so there's really not much else on a Sunday night. So, you guys, you do you. The title of the episode that will be premiering on AMC Plus mere hours from now, as I said, title of the episode is Whatever. Jesus, I can't even read it. Remember What They Took from You. Which obviously I can't remember because I can't even speak the words that are directly in front of me.
Right. Now, are they talking about the showrunners? Because I remember what they took from me.
Yeah, my sanity.
They took my enjoyment for the show.
They did take that away. How dare they? There's no really good description yet. The only thing I've seen online was we pick up where we left off, where these scrappy survivors are trying to, and it's way too general. So we pick up where we left off, folks, and we're gonna get Morgan and Madison in with the people of Padre, and then things will devolve from there.
Don't they want? They're trying to get the kid back.
Yeah, they're trying to get Mo back. Baby Mo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Baby Mo, that's right.
Yeah, Baby Mo.
So they were on the speedboat and they were going to wherever Padre is, and whatever. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll give you the play-by-play because we certainly don't want you to have to watch the season finale again. Once is enough. The episode.
Hey,
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, have they announced, will there be a Talking Dead after? Because for Fear, they typically do a talking at the beginning and at the end.
I haven't seen anything. No, I don't think so.
Well, you know what? With the writer's strike, maybe they can't.
That's possible. I didn't see any word about that at all leading up to this, so I don't know. I would see maybe them doing a special one for Dead City or maybe for the Daryl stuff, but they haven't been very pro Fear the Walking Dead. Maybe they'll do a special when we get to the series finale at the end of 8, but no, I haven't seen any word of that yet. So no.
Okay.
The episode itself, was sadly written by the Knuckleheads, but it was directed by Michael Satrazinas. So basically, it'll be very typical of what Fear has been for about the last 2 seasons, which is it's going to sound stupid but look beautiful. So So you can at least
Satrazimas he's directed a lot of them, but they're not very good.
Yeah, but I mean, his directing style, it will look good is my thing. Yeah. So, but that's it. Yeah, we're we're getting ready for that to happen again. We are going to be returning to our usual podcast schedule, just so that you know. We will record on Monday nights, as usual, and so we'll put a call out for feedback starting on Sunday. Alex Baelish has already sent us feedback. It's very generalized. He hasn't watched the episode yet, but it's hilarious, and I can't wait to share it with you all. Because he's a funny guy, that Alex, let me tell you. I gotta say, if you are watching, this is a little side note here. If you're at all watching the show From, which is the sort of like a supernatural, mysterious TV show, and the lead is Harold Perrineau, who played Michael on Lost. I've heard nothing but good things about the series. It's on a streamer that I don't have access to, so I haven't watched it yet. But our pal Alex, he does a podcast on that with another friend of our podcast, Lizzie Schmoopy, and they are kicking some butt. They're getting actors from the show and doing like interviews with people that were in the cast, and they're doing great. So if you are watching that show and you want a companion podcast, I would obviously recommend going and listening to our pals, Alex and Lizzie, because I've heard good things about that. I haven't watched it yet, so I will, of course, listen to those podcasts once I consume some of From. That's definitely on the horizon.
I believe it's on Epix.
Yeah, which I just don't have access to.
Yeah, I don't have access to that either. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've heard rumors that they're going to put the first season on either Netflix or Hulu. I don't know. It's one of the more common streamers. So I might be able to watch season 1 sometime soon, which I think would be great. So,
All right.
We also, before we wrap up, we wanted to make a note of the writer's strike, which is still ongoing as we record this. Been going for just about a week, I'd say now, give or take.
Yeah, I think they went on strike last Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, so
yeah,
that's about a week.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It may affect some of the. It will definitely affect the production of some of your shows, which big deal. They'll get back to it when the time is right, and we certainly want the writers to get the contracts and the concessions that they deserve. So good luck to them, and we support you. We wanted to make a note that, yes, productions are being affected, but it's possible that the schedule on AMC might be affected as well. If they get to a point where they don't have anything ready, based on the strike, if they don't have anything to put into the schedule for, say, the fall, it's possible that they might take something that's completed like Dead City and bump it forward a couple of weeks or maybe even a month or two. So, which, it is what it is. We would obviously still cover it. It doesn't matter when it happens. But we just wanted you guys to sort of keep your eyes out for that. So if it does move, we're going to still cover Dead City. Or, the Daryl show, if that has to move a little bit too, we still have every intention of covering those when they come on the air. But just be prepared for that. Remember, we were talking about this before we started recording, there was some adjustments when the COVID shutdowns happened too. We had that one finale for Walking Dead that we didn't see for months and months and months, which was so terrible.
Yeah.
But it also, it affected the schedule of when they did World Beyond and Fear and stuff like that. It just,
everything.
It just switched up the whole plan of when I think they were planning on putting out some of those seasons. So again, be prepared for that, folks. Be ready to roll with the punches. Don't forget to support those writers. If you have a chance to look into the things that they are looking for, these are just being compensated for what they deserve. So just be.
It's mostly has to do with streaming.
Yes.
In terms of what they get their royalties for, because streaming is kind of eliminated for a long time, without going into too much detail. Long time, the idea with television especially was a show would run on when it was being made, and then when it was done, it would go into syndication where it would show up on other networks, would show old shows, right?
Right.
And with streaming, that's not really a thing anymore.
Yep.
And so a lot of these, for a long time, writers would get royalties on properties that they've written that were in syndication, and that's how they made a lot of their money, which they deserve because they created it, they wrote it. And now, you see things where writers say they get their royalty checks for streaming, and it's, a check for like 10 cents.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Because when the last contract was done up, the streaming situation was not nearly as developed as it is now, and so it's not covering it. And so they just want to get what's fair, and so that's primarily what they're after. And I think what we just have to watch out for is the longer the strike goes on, the greater the chance that like fall television is going to be disrupted.
Yeah.
Because now is the time where they're getting ready to go into production for all those shows that are going to be back in September.
Right.
And so that's the thing. Anything on AMC that is not yet been filmed, the longer it goes on, the greater the chance that, well, it's going to be pushed back. So just got to be aware of it.
Yeah. And it honestly, I mean, industries change with time. They adjust with new technologies and new formats. And sadly, and they've made adjustments to actors and directors, etc., for streaming, but there hasn't been any concessions that have happened or changes that have happened for the writers. And it's no different. It's no different than anybody else. It just, all it is their art form has adjusted and changed with the times, and they just have to take their contracts and have those adjust and change with the times as well. There's really no reason to not do it, Yeah. So.
Well, it's money. I mean, it's
well, of course,
the studios the studios were making a lot of money on streaming and not have to pay them. And now that the contract that they had is up, the writers are saying, well, we need to get paid for that. And that's where the impasse is, because the studios are like, well, we like making money. So, again, it's like the last time they went on strike, it was like 2007, I want to say. If you remember, that was like in November of that year. And that really messed up TV. And that's where you saw this really massive.
Affected.
Yeah. And there was this massive rise of reality TV. That's when it really exploded, because you can do reality TV without having writers, because it's supposedly not scripted. And so that was kind of the aftermath of that last strike. But that was what, almost 20 years ago. It was like 16 years ago. So they'll figure it out. They'll get what they're entitled to. But just kind of be aware of it, and that it might affect our viewing schedule here coming up.
It may, and we are ready if it does. We are definitely ready.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I don't have any other news item to discuss. Do you?
No, that was it.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming along with us while we covered Chernobyl. It was great to dive into this new piece and share it all with you. We look forward to chatting with you again soon. So other than that, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed. Whoa, hold on a second. I'm getting a phone call. Hello. I'm just starting recording my podcast. Can I call you back?